Witness what it's like to be a non-binary pregnant person and then a parent. Hello and welcome back to I'm the Zaddy. This episode is going to be a little bit more personal. It's about how being pregnant has changed the way that I see myself, but also the way I am now seen by other people, and how identity can suddenly stop feeling private. I'm going to talk about the hormone changes and how I genuinely felt like I was going through puberty again. The whole bra situation I was not prepared for, and the decision to change my name before giving birth. One of the things I genuinely didn't think about when we started fertility treatment was hormones. I didn't question whether my hormone levels were low or high or how they might affect me emotionally. My periods before pregnancy were always pretty chill. I didn't really get PMS or mood swings. I didn't get many symptoms at all. So when the hormones hit, they hit. And it wasn't just emotional. It felt like an internal shift in my identity. Like I was being pushed into a version of myself I didn't fully recognize. Every emotion felt bigger. Everything felt louder and more exposed. And I think what I didn't expect was how quickly it changed the way I felt in public. I was no longer just existing in my body privately. I felt visible in a way that I couldn't control. The hormone rages started when I was taking the Merriweather injections every night before our IUI treatment. And at the beginning I felt okay. But then the longer that I was on them, the more intense everything became. The hormones were building inside me, and I started to have mood swings, and it felt completely out of character. I was snappy one minute and crying the next, and tiny things felt suddenly enormous. And honestly, I started to feel like I was losing my sense of self. Not because I didn't understand why it was happening, because I knew it was the hormones and the jabs, but because I couldn't stop it. And that lack of control started to seep into how I moved through the world. I wasn't fully in charge of how I was being perceived because I wasn't fully in control of how I was interacting. I remember speaking to my partner about it, and she said something that really shifted my perspective. She reminded me that for a lot of people, this level of hormonal fluctuation is completely normal. They experience it monthly. It is their baseline, and it completely blew my mind. I was astounded. And I also realised that I'd never really experienced hormones like it, and I've never experienced myself like this before. And I started questioning absolutely everything. And what made it harder was what it did to my relationship with my body. Because when you already have a complicated relationship with your body like I do, hormones don't just feel physical. It feels like it's changing something inside of you that changes the way that you look at things and interact with everybody. And it felt like it was changing how I existed in public. I became hyper aware of everything that felt inherently female. You know, my chest, my boobs, my emotions, my hip, my whole body changing shape. And I also kind of felt this change of how I thought other people were reading me. And that could have just been a little bit of paranoia, but it felt like that feeling of being perceived differently without even saying anything. And it brought back something I hadn't felt in years. Puberty. That sudden moment where your body stops feeling private because it's outwards. Boobs have grown, you're showing, your hips are getting bigger. Everything feels on show almost. And I started to feel like people were reacting to me differently. But no one kind of explains how you navigate that. Puberty was always framed as this exciting transition into womanhood. But for me back then it felt like discomfort, and it feels like discomfort now too. And the fertility hormones, they brought that feeling right back. But this time I was more aware of it because I was aware of why it was happening, but it still didn't make it any less meaningful. It just meant that I just wasn't feeling it just internally. It was how I was being responded to externally too. Even the small things, the way that people looked at me or spoke to me, the assumptions that I felt they were making about me suddenly felt very loud. Like strangers were positioning me differently in the world before I'd even said anything. I felt like I was being seen as pregnant and as a woman and very much categorised like that. And I don't think I was prepared for how strange that would feel. I've spent a lot of my life not wanting to be only seen in a feminine way. I've always leaned to the more masculine side of me, the more male feeling. But pregnancy makes your body impossible to ignore. It becomes so public, even when you're just walking down the street. Then came the bra situation. My boobs were growing and suddenly my binder style bras weren't really working anymore. They no longer fit and they became uncomfortable to wear. Everything was kind of spilling out and felt really tight. And I've worn binder style bras for years, bras that minimise my chest, that flatten me out, because that's what has felt comfortable for me. That's what's felt like me, which for me, I guess, also meant that I haven't really acknowledged my chest in a very visible way. So when I suddenly had to change that, it wasn't just a practical, oh, I'll swap this bra for this. It was emotional, because it wasn't just buying a bra. I was stepping into visibility that I hadn't chosen before. We went into Primark after trying Asda first, and even being in the bra section felt strange. Like I wasn't meant to be there, like I was being seen in a category I don't fully belong to. Because my brain doesn't tell me I wear a bra, it tells me I restrain my chest. So standing there looking at all these bras felt uncomfortable in a way I can't fully explain. I just wanted it to be over. My partner was super helpful and found some softer t-shirt bras, and they helped me choose. But I couldn't even bring myself to carry them, because it felt like an admission of something I wasn't ready to say out loud. That dysphoria hit me in so many ways, and it wasn't just about my body changing. It was about what my body now signaled to everybody else. And that tension between what my body needed and what felt like me is something I'm still definitely navigating. But it does connect to something bigger. Something I'd been thinking about for years. Changing my name. Because names are also perception and how you're seen, how you're read by systems and strangers and institutions. My previous legal name never felt like me. It always created a bit of a disconnect when anybody used it. And hearing, oh, you don't look like a legal name, over and over again only reinforced the gap between who I was legally and who I am and how people see me. And then over time I went through a process of estrangement from my parents, and that shifted something. It removed a sense of obligation to keep my name. So in between the 5th and the 6th IUI, I changed it. And when I became pregnant, it solidified the reasoning for me to change my name, because I didn't want to give birth with a name that didn't represent me. I wanted my name to match how I see myself and how the people closest to me see me too. So it wasn't just an internal change, it was an official change. Because pregnancy makes you more visible in so many ways, in hospitals and paperwork and scans, your body becomes recorded and labelled and categorised, and I didn't want to feel misnamed through all of that. So I'm really glad I changed my name when I did, and I even changed my title to MX wherever I could, even though the NHS still records me as unknown, because they do not have the title MX. And it's kind of hilarious, and it's also kind of telling, because even now the systems don't quite know where to place me. It adds to me not fully knowing where to place myself inside of it either. Where do I belong in a system that is built for women? Pregnancy changes your body, and hormones change how you feel. But what I didn't expect was how much it would change how I am seen, and how that would change how I see myself. And I think what this episode really comes down to is identity, but it's also visibility, and learning how to exist in a body that is now public in a way that it was never before. And I'm still figuring that out, and I'm probably going to be figuring it out all the way through this journey into parenthood. So if any of this resonated with you, especially around identity, visibility, or feeling at home in your body, I'd really love to hear from you. You can email me at getintouch@imthezaddy.com or find me on Instagram at imthezaddy.pod. Thank you for being here. I'll speak to you next time. Peace.